Fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory. Hey everyone, it's Ryan back again for sonofvin. Well, it's been a while, as usual. I just can't seem to get on making these videos much these days. My kid just had a birthday, but to be honest, a lot of it had to do with I've been deep diving very much into a newer social media platform called Nostr. You can learn more about it at nostr.how. And to be honest, it's decentralized. It feels much more free, much more able to say what I want, do what I want, and not be confined by maybe one person out of so many doesn't like what I say and I get banned, suspended, one of those aspects. But the best part is that I can make a post and other people can actually pay me for the posts I make. Instead of just giving me a like, they can actually give me a zap, which contains a fractional portion of a Bitcoin. Maybe you're not a fan of Bitcoin, that's totally fine with me, but you should really check it out and see for yourself. This is not a paid endorsement. I just have been really deep into it these past several months, learning how to make apps on it. And in fact, I've made a couple pretty cool trivia bots that people do seem to enjoy. But beyond that, we do actually have a new Indiana Jones movie coming out very soon called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I grew up during the 80s when the Indiana Jones movies first came out. In fact, I saw some of my first memories of going to a movie theater was to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very first Indiana Jones movie, which came out in 1981. And then its sequel, which came out in 1984, was technically a prequel because it's supposed to take place prior to that. But it wasn't as well received because it had a PG rating, but it was actually so violent. The elephant in the room is that it's supposed to be India, but it was super duper stereotypical. In fact, India at one point banned it because they found it to be terrible. And, as a small boy, none of this registered with me. I personally really enjoyed it. In fact, today, maybe that's why I enjoy it so much, is because it seems to be the more mature of the movies. It is more violent, yes. In fact, it is the reason why the MPAA created the PG-13 label, because it was released as a PG movie and people were appalled at how bad it was. It had slavery, child slavery, lots of deaths, lots of gore in its standards, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, on top of that, you do have the very stereotypical stuff that was in it. Now, I didn't know any of that as a kid, and as I grew up, I still love that movie. In fact, I eventually had this hat made by a company called Advantage Hats. They actually will, you can submit your measurements and they will craft an Indiana Jones hat for you based upon your measurements. And you can actually tell them at what part of what movie do you want your hat to be made after. I chose the bridge scene actually out of Temple of Doom because I like that movie. Stereotypical stuff withstanding, blah, blah, blah. I enjoy that movie. And with the resurgence of the career of Ke Huy Quan, it's actually probably going to get more of a focus these days because of that. So, with that said, I have decided to kind of blend a wine tasting into the new release of an Indiana Jones movie because I love Indiana Jones. In fact, this past Halloween, which is partly why I have this hat, I dressed up as Indiana Jones. My son was a Ghostbuster. Depending on which night out, he was one or the others because they have different patches. But, I do enjoy it. I got my own whip even. But on top of that, I decided, hey, you know what? Temple of Doom does focus on India, though they do film it in Sri Lanka due to the fact that India wanted nothing to do with the film. But for me personally, I found that movie enjoyable, and I want to honor and respect the fact that it actually introduced me somewhat, mind you, not quite totally accurate, to India as a small boy, and I am going to drink India wines today. I have tried wines from Thailand. I've actually been to wineries in Cambodia. I've been to, if you've read some of my past blogs, you'll see that I have actually been to some wineries in South China, which has a similar climate. I have never tried Lao wine, but I would like to. I don't think I have anyway. If I have, it's not ringing a bell right now. But considering India is currently the second most populated country in the world, and the wine industry has been booming there from everything I've been seeing, I thought it'd be a great idea to actually try Indian wines as sort of an homage to Indiana Jones's new release of Dial of Destiny. So India has had a long history with wine. It is said that around 500 BC, the first vines were imported in from probably Persia, and the wine industry more or less got started in India after that. And for centuries, wine was made in different fashions within the country of India until the phylloxera epidemic actually hit there as well in the late 19th century, just the same way it hit America and many other places, and really wrecked a lot of the vines that were already planted. Not too long after that, India got its own freedom, and then things changed a bit. A lot of the vines were uprooted. A lot of that kind of went away until the 1980s is when it finally came back around. So for today's Indian wine tasting, I have two wines from Grover Zampa. They are currently the second largest winery in the country. They merged with another winery in 2012, and currently what they're called, Grover Zampa, is represented by that. They really have two major regions that they have their wines in. One being where this wine is actually from, Nandi Hills, and another one in Nashik. And for this tasting, they seem to focus a lot on a couple things. Though I do see that they have a bunch of white wines. Their reds, they especially focus on Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz. I also saw that they have some sparkling wines, which I'm not a big sparkling wine guy, so I decided not to get any for this tasting. This first wine today is actually Grover Art Collection 2020. It's interesting because they just kind of print using a printer the date on the front, so it's kind of hard to see, but this is a 2020, and it's a screw top. I think this is kind of the lower end, if you will, of their wines compared to this one. It is 60% Cabernet and 40% Shiraz. It has pretty strong tannins. It's kind of more bitter than this wine was. It's almost like a little burnt dark berries. It's a little flatter on the taste. There's a little more fizziness to it. Again, it just feels like it's definitely lesser of these two wines. And for my second wine, it is their La Reserve. It is a 2018, and again, it's super tiny print. It's more or less like a printer they use on the label, so they probably first get the labels printed, and then they actually will run this through like a laser printer or something and just put it on the front. So it's very hard to see unless you get out a magnifying glass, kind of like I had to do, or really shine it in bright lights or something. But as far as the wine itself, I believe La Reserve is like their tip top, because they actually are creating a lot of clubs around all the different wineries around the country named after this wine. So it's kind of considered, I think, one of their top shelf varieties. It is 80% Cabernet and 20% Shiraz. Between these two wines, it is pretty much night and day. This one, I could put in a blind taste test with several other wines around the world, and it would do quite well. It's not very hot. It doesn't have a lot of high alcohol feel to it. There's a lot of berries, a lot of aromas. It feels kind of a mild, but it's on the higher end of mild. So there's like medium-ish tannins, medium-ish acids. I would say some vanilla and spice with some light to mid berry, like blueberries in it. in general, it has like a lot of different aromas and tastes to it, while this one just kind of has more of a flat taste to it. Being the fact that India is in kind of the tropical climate zone, it is very surprising that they're able to even grow this quality. Much probably like Thailand, is they're using microclimates to kind of compensate for that. You know, higher elevation in certain areas where there's not as much probably wind and not as much rain, you know, and also the higher elevation is causing a coolness to it that they're able to pull off such really good wines like this. They do actually grow a few native hybrid grapes there as well in India, called Bangalore Blue, I believe it is, and Bangalore Purple. And much the same way that American hybrids kind of get the label as being foxy, from what everything I've read, they are also considered foxy and just not as top shelf, which, you know, I find that very subjective because I've had some pretty good native hybrid wines from America. So I'm guessing that there's just some wine snobs out there who don't like to try something that's not Cabernet and Shiraz. But beyond that, very good wine. I would still drink it, but if somebody gave me a free bottle of one of these, I would take this one. Just saying. With that said, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is coming soon, and I cannot wait. I have avoided 99% of all spoilers and trailers because, quite frankly, that stuff just ruins a movie for me, and I like to go in there knowing practically nothing about what I'm about to see. I enjoyed the movies when I was a kid. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, not so much. But, you know, hey, I still want to go see this. I still want to have one more chance to see Indiana Jones. Maybe I'll try to sneak in some Indian wine. I don't know. But anyway, I hope you have a great summer, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Cheers.